In life, we encounter many varieties and spectrums, such as that of color, love, and politics. Depending on your preferences, you can lie anywhere in that spectrum for those things. Now, for example, with color, you can either really love color, hate it, or lie somewhere in the middle of that spectrum. And the same thing can actually be said for beer. You can really love beer, not like it at all, or have your favorite go-to beer. Most people that do not like beer, it's probably because they lack the knowledge of the different types that exist. Knowing how beer is made and the different types that exist could actually not only open up your taste buds, but it could also be a great topic for conversation. Now, what is beer? Beer is an alcoholic beverage made out of 4 different ingredients: water, barley, hops, and yeast. Water actually makes up 95% of beer and is used throughout multiple times throughout the brewing process. Barley is actually malted for its sugars, which feed the yeast in the beer and also give the beer its color, flavor, and mouthfeel. Next ingredient is the hops. Hops is the spice of the beer. It gives the beer its bitterness, which actually counteracts the sweetness of the malt to give it a balance of flavors. It also gives the beer an aroma and flavor that ranges from citrus and pine to earthy and spicy flavors. Not only that, but hops is actually a natural preservative that helps preserve the beer, and most beers that have a lot of hops actually last a little bit longer than beers that don't have as much. And last but not least, the last ingredient is yeast. Yeast is actually what makes the beer an alcoholic beverage, because the yeast actually gets the sugar from the malt and creates alcohol and carbon dioxide, therefore actually naturally carbonating the beer. That is the last ingredient, and what we have at the end is our beer, which we have here a lager and an ale. These are the 2 major types of beer that exist. Now going back to yeast. The difference between these 2 major types of beer is actually the type of yeast that is used for both. Ales actually use a top fermenting yeast. So these are the ales here. They use a top fermenting yeast, and the process actually takes 7 days. The yeast used actually rises from in the beer to the top, and these usually have actually a stronger and more forceful flavor than the lagers, and there are about probably 11 different types of ales that exist. Now we have the lager. The lager actually uses a bottom fermenting yeast, meaning that the yeast sinks to the bottom and is actually brewed at a colder temperature than the ale. It actually also takes a lot longer. It takes about a month or so because it requires aging. And this aging process actually inhibits the creation of esters and byproducts, giving it a cleaner, more crisper, and mellow taste. And there's about 5 different types of lagers that exist. Now here is an example of an ale that we have. It's the Swamp Ape IPA. IPA stands for India Pale Ale. This specific one has a lot of hops, meaning that this, going back to what I had told you earlier, meaning this beer has a lot of bitterness. The bitterness is actually measured in beer. It's measured in something called an IBU, which is the International Bitterness Unit. And each beer, depending on whether you like bitterness or not, you can actually see the IBU. And if you like a lot of bitter beers, you like higher IBU beers. Then we have the Lagunitas Pilsner, which is in a lot less different. If we actually open the beers, you can see the differences between both of the beers. This is the lager right here. As you can see, it has a light color to it. And then we have the IPA here, which has a darker color. And that's another difference between the ales and the pilsners. Ales and the lagers. Sorry. And if you actually taste these 2, they'll be completely different. This is going to be a lot bitter. This is going to be a lot more cleaner, crisper flavor to it. Then, so pretty much these are just 2 types of beer. Now, between this subtopic of an IPA, there's also other ales like Irish ales, there's stouts, there's pale ales, there's a lot of different types of beer. There's five different types of lagers. This doesn't even begin to cover the amount of beers that exist. So I'm just gonna leave you with this quote that I think defines beer drinking very well. And it says, like Adam and Eve, Isaac and Ishmael, Mayo and Confucius, good and evil, day and night, Hittites and Visigoths, John and Lorena, or Groucho and Mo, ales and lagers are as different as can be. Still, we must love each for who they are, separately but equal, with liberty and justice for all. Cheers!